Urban Brazil is at war with itself. An undeclared civil war. A slaughtering of its young. The violence now spilling out of these slums or favelas has made the country's two major cities more deadly than most war zones.
Even if we don't have a war, we have its consequences.
The wealthy are in retreat, cocooned in fortress-like suburbs. The poor are left to hope traditional music programs and the like can keep their young from the bloodshed. There's new hope here too. Some favela sons and daughters now have unprecedented influence in Brazil. Maybe they can finally put an end to the violence. Brazilians know it as Cidade Maravilhosa, the marvellous city, a symphony of the southern Atlantic, a stark mountainous stretch of South America's west coast, and 7 million people. Rio de Janeiro. Few cities anywhere match its raw beauty, and few match its brutality.
Brazil is unfortunately champion in killing adolescents through armed fire, and it's very much linked to the question of drug factions.
For 5 years, British anthropologist Luke Dowdney has studied the 700 slums or favelas knitted in the gaps along Rio's slopes, and the children that grow up in them.
They live in a kill or be killed basis. If they don't kill someone when they're told to do so, they will be killed.
Young boys, armed by Rio's 3 murderously competitive drug fiefdoms.
We do have children in Rio who are armed at 10 and 11. I've seen them.
Children hired to deal in cocaine and marijuana.
Many of them with war-grade weapons.
To terrorise and torture rivals.
AK-47s, AR-15s.
And often to murder.
We estimate between 5,000 and 6,000 under 18-year-olds working in an armed function within the municipality of Rio, and it's very understandable.
Working the favelas, chaotic suburbs built by a flood of poor agricultural workers to the cities in recent decades.
Polícia dentro toda hora dando tiro, tinha que correr, dar tiro em cima deles.
A drug worker at 12, L, as we're told to call him, is now 16. He and more than 100 boys like him are serving time in this Rio prison. We gained access on an undertaking not to identify the boys. L has never been charged for the crimes he's about to admit to. And were the police the only people you'd fire on with those weapons, or were there other people that you might fire on?
E outros também. Quem vacilava na boa, não tinha que matar.
So has he killed any of these cheaters or betrayers of the drug gangs?
Montão. Não é só eu, é eu e mais bonde que vem dando tiro.
Are there any murders where he acted alone?
Sozinho, 4. E taquei fogo lá na guacha.
Who told you to do that?
Eu vi aí fiz também.
When we talk about lethal violence, when we talk about death, there is this terrible concentration on poor black young boys.
Luis Soares is Brazil's Under-Secretary for Security, advising this man, Luis Inácio da Silva. In a country where wealth and privilege rule, Lula, as they know him, has managed the unthinkable. The son of Brazilian poverty and a humble trade union leader, has been elected the country's first ever working-class president.
And Lula is being elected with a plan, a national plan for security, in which he is proposing changes on every level.
Justiça para o povo pobre deste país, justiça para o povo brasileiro. Muito obrigado, gente.
Delivering justice in Rio is a daunting task. A new study compares the city's violent killings to combat zones like Afghanistan, Sierra Leone and Colombia.
The only area of the world that had more combat-related deaths and the municipality of Rio de Janeiro had firearms-related deaths was Angola. Since 1978, more people have died in the city of Rio than as a result of the conflict in Colombia, the civil war in Colombia.
Children here are 8 times more likely to die violently than those in Israel or the West Bank. Not just an academic, Luke Dowdney takes a hands-on approach to keeping young Brazilians from the drug factions. He runs a nighttime boxing school in a Rio favela. He believes boys given choices will take alternatives to drug work.
Bom, pelo menos esse trabalho social que o Luke implantou aqui na comunidade é muito bom para eles, porque eles canalizam toda a problemática da comunidade aqui dentro. Eles deixam aqui dentro toda a ira, toda a revolta.
We spoke with mother and boxing club assistant Miriam Gonzaga dos Santos on a staircase, after a warning our camera would cause trouble if seen in the favela.
Vencedores são aqueles que conseguem passar dos 40 anos. Eu me sinto uma vitoriosa, porque é muito difícil. Nós somos sobreviventes de cada dia que a gente acorda.
Miriam's 14-year-old boy has trained here.
Não mostra dor, nunca mostra dor na cara, nunca.
Speak with her for just a while, and you see a mother worn by fear for her 2 children.
Eu quero que eles consigam chegar à minha idade, com honestidade.
The Governor's Palace in Rio. The morning we arrived, drug gangs have sprayed the facade with bullets while some of their jailed leaders organise a prison riot. An embarrassed governor lists weapons that somehow got to the drug bosses inside their cells.
5 pistolas, 3 AR-15 e 10 carregadores de metralhadoras, 2 granadas e coquetel Molotov, 5 quilos de explosivo chamado C4.
Like her ally President Lula, Benedita da Silva is a child of the poor. She's now Brazil's welfare minister, though when we recently met her, she was finishing her term as Rio's governor.
Porque antes eu limpava os palácios, agora hoje eu moro num palácio.
She worked her way out of violence and poverty to political prominence, and she's built a reputation busting drug gangs.
Eles são a indústria do medo. Não que eles tenham poderes, mas é uma indústria do medo. Eles detêm instrumentos que atemorizam, eles têm armas e é preciso dar combate a isso. E o meu governo foi o governo mais sério, até pela minha origem.
400 kilometres southwest, Sao Paulo repeats Rio's agony, but on an even larger scale.
Over there is downtown.
Pilot Hamilton Alves Roca took us above the world's 4th largest city to see the favelas etched into Sao Paulo's extraordinary sprawl. Favelas just emerging in spaces on the landscape. And to see how the wealthy in this city of 18 million avoid going anywhere near favelas and the violence that makes them such feared places.
Bom, São Paulo tem o maior tráfego de helicópteros do mundo, na minha opinião.
New York has 10 helipads. Sao Paulo has 240. Skyscraper tops are aerial parking. Executives buy into helicopter collectives, hop between buildings and retreat at night to homes in walled mini-cities, like the one Hamilton lives in, Alphaville.
O governo deveria assegurar a vida das pessoas. E como o governo não faz isso, lá criou-se uma segurança privada.
In fact, a small army of 1,100 officers secures Alphaville alone.
We have to get security for all, or we are not going to have security for anyone.
For Luis Suarez, the Alphavilles and aerial taxis have a special ugliness.
A picture of our defeat as a society, as a nation, as a democratic nation.
and a part of the sickness that's made many thousands of boys like El murderers, though he explains his executions in more simple terms.
Para não babar a favela, tinha que enterrar, tacar fogo e enterrar. Senão a polícia vinha e tampava a favela.
Who were these people that you killed?
Quem eram essas pessoas que você matou?
2 era a polícia, que nós enquadramos na favela, os amigos amarraram e mandaram matar. E uma era uma mulher que era X9, e outro cara como estava disfarçado, era P2.
O que é P2?
Polícia, mas vem disfarçado com papel na nossa mão.
This young cocaine courier and his drug worker father have been shot 6 times between them. In Rio, that's life, or in several thousand cases each year, death. Though many here now believe Brazil is ready to confront this crisis, that the public mood has shifted, in part because of one especially prominent Rio case. Breakfast news editor on Brazil's powerful TV Globo, Renato Machado is no son of the favelas, but he worked with one.
I think that the Tim Lopes case showed that nobody is protected, not even us reporters.
Tim Lopes grew up next to a favela and used his affinity with the poor as an investigative reporter in the slums, until he upset Rio's drug lords. Sneaking into a favela with a hidden camera, then broadcasting these pictures of heavily armed drug boys dealing in cocaine.
You cannot go with this sort of camera and lighting equipment, you know. You cannot go just in with a camera. They would shoot you. They would kill you.
Last June, Tim Lopes went back with his tiny camera to secretly record cocaine sales promoted by underage sex at one of these favela parties.
He had the story, but it was still lacking, let's say, the vital shots of drug and sex.
And he died getting them.
He was spotted, and he died.
In fact, the drug boss took him, tried him in a court of sorts, tortured him, and personally hacked off his head with a samurai sword.
Aí quando eu chego na televisão, tá dando prêmio, tá dando a corrida de Fórmula 1, aí eu vejo uma tarja preta. Confirmada a morte de Tim Lopes.
A terrible moment for Sister Tanya and the Lopes family, but a deeply powerful one for Brazil.
Ele mostrou a crueldade do que é o descaso de 20 anos de abandono social das autoridades em cima dessas pessoas menos favorecidas.
Brazil had barely blinked at the slaughter of tens of thousands in its favelas, but Tim Lopes made news night after night. His colleagues insist that is why then-Governor Benedita da Silva moved against the drug lords. Benedita?
Yes.
Was watching the nightly news?
Yes.
And got the message?
Yes. And at that precise moment, she knew that either she would attack the problem, she faced the problem directly, or she would be politically lost.
Hoping to hear from those in the drug business, we make one more nighttime bid to cross the line into Rio's drug-controlled favelas, an unnerving trip to Cidade de Deus, the city of God, stronghold of the feared Red Command drug gang. The gang's leaders have no idea we're coming in, and the drug worker we're about to meet says his life depends on them never knowing. He's an edgy, angry and armed 18-year-old known as JN.
Essa aqui é porque se essa aqui falhar, essa aqui costuma falhar, engasgar. Essa aqui não engasga não. Essa aqui é só botar o cão para trás e largar os dedos em cima deles.
He admits to shooting people, how many he won't say.
Já atirei já, em vários. Que tentaram atirar em mim.
Did they die?
Já.
How do you feel about that now?
Como você se sente disso?
Me sinto tranquilo, porque antes de chorar minha mãe, antes da minha mãe chorar, chora deles primeiro.
So is a president who knows this poverty and a newly stirred demand for action against violence enough for change? Those advising Lula acknowledge his measures will have to be radical, especially with the police.
Policemen can sell weapons to criminals, weapons that will kill them, kill policemen afterwards. So this is the paradox under which we are living.
And that happens regularly, daily?
Yeah, daily.
It's a claim we put to JN. Sure enough, he confirms just where the Red Command gets its guns.
Muitas, os polícia vêm e vendem para nós. Vem deles. E outras a gente compra. Dos alemães, vagabundo transporta, de lá de fora para cá.
He does business with them on his own territory, yet if he's learned nothing else in his 8 years as a drug worker, it's to hate the law.
Polícia são safados, eles são vermes, eles não prestam. Eles não pedem, não servem pra nada. Eles vêm na favela, pegam dinheiro, mano, mata qualquer um que entrar na frente. Trabalhador mesmo, não tem caô, eles matam, eles arrebentam, eles rebatem, eles fazem o que quer. Mano, se prevalecendo em cima de uma farda. Mano, por isso não presta.
He says he can never leave the favela. The police would kill him. If the police want you, why haven't they just come in and got you?
A gente tá sempre bem armado, né? Esperando eles. Pra reagir, pra largar o dedo, pra mandar tiros em cima dele. Jogar granada, pra explodir, acabar com eles. Por isso que eles não entram.
Every noise makes him jumpy, and his moves make us jumpy. But then life for the young men of Brazil's favelas is on the edge. And when you leave, what are you going to do? What now for your life?
Voltar pro tráfico. Por causa de que é bom, dá dinheiro, muito rápido. Tem tudo que tu quiser.
For the first time, their president is a worker, a poor man made good. On Sao Paulo's central Avenida Paulista, tens of thousands declare their hope that Lula will make things better. If he is to deliver on that promise, Lula has to reverse the violence tearing at Brazil's cities, to bring security and opportunity to those who see him as one of their own.